Audience, Ralph, I'm going to start the meeting. Sorry, thank you. Any of you who have been to any of the meetings that I chair know I am bullish on starting meetings on time. So it's 7 o'clock, so I will open the meeting. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 14th, 2024 meeting of the, I will say this once, Planning, Environment, Natural Heritage Committee. For the rest of the meeting will be known as the Planning Committee. So, but we have it official. This is session PENHC 01-2024. For everybody's benefit, first off, I should introduce myself. I'm Bob McCrae. I'm the chair. We have our members here. Elaine Capes, Jerry Reed, Barb Jafflace. We're hoping that Elaine Keogh shows up. We are all residents of the town of Mono. I'll get into in a couple of minutes what the committee, planning committee is about. Meeting is being conducted both in the council chambers here and by means of electronic participation as permitted by. Hi, Elaine. How are you? We're started already. You know me. Permitted by Section 238 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended by the Town of Mono Procedure Bylaw 2020-42. I say that because if you get up and speak, this is being live streamed and it is being recorded. So just so that you're aware of that. And residents tonight will have the option to join the meeting by using their access information. So that's that. Call to information done. Number 2 on our agenda, emergency exits. In the event, unlikely event that anything would happen, and we've got to vacate this, off to your left over there, an exit, and behind you. Item number 3, for committee members, declarations of pecuniary interest. You can make them either now or at any point during the meeting. So that's that. Committee members, and I'm breaking this rule myself for the purposes of the recording. Please turn on your mic and speak into the mic, please. So. That's not on the agenda here. That's just something that I thought. Number 4 here, approval of the agenda. So agenda for PENHC session 01-2024, complete with the following application documents. I'm not going to read through them all. Do I have someone move that we approve the agenda? Moved by Cape, seconded by Jafflace. Any objections? Seeing none. The agenda is approved. Number 5, and thanks for your patience here. I'm working through this as fast as possible. Number 5 here is approval of the minutes of our Planning Committee session 04 of 2023. So we have those minutes. Are there any corrections, questions, anything, Elaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of corrections. So I was not present at that meeting, and I'm listed as being present. So I was absent.
Okay.
And just to update you about an item that would be coming to council, the application around the, which that topic of that meeting was for the daycare center. So that is coming back to council in April.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
you.
Our secretary is actually upstairs. She's watching this online and taking the minutes for tonight's meetings. So, Simi, I'll ask you to make that correction and remove Elaine Capes name from that. With that correction, do I have someone to move that we approve those? Moved by Jerry Reed, seconded by Elaine Kehoe. Any objections? Seeing none, those minutes are approved. Last thing before we get into the real reason for tonight's meeting, item 6 on the agenda, if you've seen it, public question period. All of the meetings of the Planning Committee are open to the public. And as is the style in the town of Mono, we have a public question period. And that's where we are at here now. Let me preface this by saying during the meeting, those of you in attendance will have an opportunity to ask questions about the specific application that we're going to get to here. So everybody will have ample opportunity to ask questions, make comments. So public question period here is anybody got anything they want to ask us? Thank you. Seeing none, I'm going to move on from that. Thank you. Before I introduce the application here and the reason for this, for the purposes of people here and anybody online, indulge me, I just want to go through a couple of things so that we've got clarity. Because I learned a long time ago that if we have clear ideas about what's going to happen and what people are doing and that, it always makes a meeting go smoother. So, first off, let me talk about this, the role of the Planning Committee. So the Planning Committee is a committee of council that give our recommendations, that would be the people sitting here, our recommendations to council representing the views of the residents of Mono. So that's why this is a public meeting. We're going to consider the application. We're going to ask members of the public to give us their opinions on the application, and then this committee, based on those things and our feelings, will make a recommendation to council. So in other words, we're not making the final decision here tonight. In essence, we are a commenting agency. There are many of them, and there are many, many submissions about this application. We're a commenting agency giving our thoughts and recommendations to council. What will the Planning Committee decide tonight? We will make our recommendation to council on whether we think they should grant the application for the zoning bylaw amendment from Blackthorn Developments or deny it. Recommend to grant it or deny it. I'll get into the details of that in a second. The last thing that I want to talk about then is this is part of the process. So council's process, which is the next major thing. Council will consider this application at their statutory public meeting, and that is on Tuesday, March the 26th. And Melinda, thank you. That is a night meeting, 7 o'clock at night, not 9 in the morning. So Tuesday, March 26th, 7 o'clock at night, public meeting, and council will hear basically all of what we're going to hear tonight, and council will give a decision. So as I always have done, I encourage members of the public to, and if you're here tonight, come back on Tuesday, March 26th, attend that meeting and express your views and your opinions directly to council. So I think that I hope that helps. With that, I'm going to introduce the subject here. We have a specific order that we go through, and I got smart eventually, and I wrote it down, because if I didn't have this written down, I'd forget something. So, but we have a specific order that we go through here. First thing I'm going to do, I will introduce it, and then I'm going to ask our planner, Dave Trotman, to talk about the application. Then we will have the presentation from the applicant. and/or their representatives. Next thing is that the committee of, the planning committee members will ask questions of the applicant, their representatives, and that I will go last as the chair. Once we have done that, the committee members, then I will open the floor to public, either in person or online, questions and comments from the public, and the applicant will have an opportunity to respond to those, because that's only fair. At that point in time, we'll close the public meeting. The planning committee members, 5 here, we will discuss what we'd heard, and we will make our recommendation to council. So I hope that clarifies that. Thank you for your indulgence with this, but as I say, I've over almost 30 years on the planning committee learned that if we have a clear idea of what we're doing, it all goes better. With that, finally, and thank you for your indulgence. So the purpose of this meeting, the draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendments here, this is an application to permit a proposed plan of subdivision with the implementing zoning bylaw amendment to permit development of 349 residential dwelling units, including single detached units, townhouse units, public roads with sidewalks, a central park, open space, buffer and natural heritage block, a stormwater management pond, wastewater treatment block, and potable water treatment block with access proposed from the second line and Coles Crescent. The application number here is sub 2023-01 and ZBA 2023-02. The owner is Line 2 Developments, Inc. Applicant agent is Blackthorn Developments, Incorporated. Subject property is 753072, second line, EHS, the east part of Lot 2, Concession 2. The official plan designation is Greenbelt Hamlet, and the zoning is Rural A zone, and that's the Mono Zoning Bylaw 78-1. Dave, I think with that, I've said everything that I can say about this, and I'm going to turn this over to you. And this is our Dave Trotman, our Director of Planning. So, Dave, the floor is yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair Bob. So I'll start off by saying this application is on the town's website. It's under active planning applications. It's not that hard to get there. You get to the main page. You navigate through menu services planning. You'll see the active planning applications, and it's there amongst other applications. All the documents submitted by the applicant and their consultant team, as well as reports prepared for buying through the town, are uploaded, as well as the subdivision plan, the landscape plan, and other documents. So point of clarification, the developer is Roxborough Developments. The lead consultant is Maurizio Regato, who's in the audience tonight, with Blackthorn Development Corp. But the project name, the mono project name for that site, is called Line 2 Developments. Just for clarity there. So if you think about Green Park Homes in some part of Toronto, they may call, Happy Valley Development in Newmarket, sort of thing. So just to give you some clarity, that's the project name, Line 2 Developments, and that's what you'll see on our website. So this application went through pre-consultation initially, a year and a half ago, too, maybe now at this point. And there's 2 applications. There's a plan of residential subdivision, and then there's a draft proposed zoning bylaw that would implement the various lot sizes and other blocks that Chair Bob McRae alluded to as a secondary application associated with the plan of subdivision. This application was circulated. There's requirements under the Planning Act for making people aware, the public, and you're here tonight. And that was done our typical fashion usually, which is we have to circulate within a certain parameter around the site. And we've done that. People got mail notices. We put it on our website as well. It's posted to the what are now or online newspapers. Otherwise, it would have been on your delivered newspaper on a day gone by. And we also asked the applicant to put the signboard on the property, and that's really for the folks, you know, who call their neighbor and say, hey, I got a letter in the mail, and they didn't because they're beyond the 120 meters. You know, if they walk the dog, drive by, they can see the signboard on the property. So we've covered notice, I think, fairly well. We also have to circulate this application. So obviously, in any application like this, and we have to make sure that agencies have some input, whether they're utility school boards, our town engineer, for example. And we've had all those comments went out for circulation. We haven't necessarily got them all back, but we've got most of them back. They're uploaded to the website, and those comments that were material, so in other words, if a particular agency such as Enbridge, who had really no comment at this point in time, we did not append it to the report. So the report was prepared by Nick McDonald, who's our planning consultant for this project. But all the material comments are appended to the report, and they're uploaded as well to the website. Bob McCray noted that, you know, this is a planning committee meeting, so it's open to the public. And that's why some of you folks are here tonight. Planning committee are tasked to provide, as best they can, an independent, objective assessment on the merits of this application. And they're going to do that. On March the 26th is the statutory public meeting. That is the meeting where anyone who has comments at all should be submitting those comments to council through the clerk, who's at the end of the table, Fred Simpson. The public meeting notice and the signboard on the property give sufficient information on how to do that. And of course, even online, you can get my email and my assistant's Simi on the planning page under the web page. So that's the key meeting for public meeting input for comments, is at the statutory public meeting, March 26th. It's an evening meeting. Council normally in the morning, this one's at night because of the nature of this application. I won't weigh into the subdivision plan at this point. Chair McCray's alluded to it. There's a number of various frontage single, lot frontage single detached housing proposals. They're on the plan of subdivision. And there's also some townhouse blocks as well as the other blocks that are part and parcel of site elements to any plan of subdivision, a park, a stormwater management block, walkways, and so on and so forth. We did get comments as well from some folks. There was a letter submitted from a landowner in the Coles Crescent Industrial Park. It was, I didn't actually the actual signatures, but it was supported by the majority of the industrial landowners there in Coles Crescent. And they do have concerns with this application in terms of the long-term functionality of the existing Coles Crescent Industrial Park. And they're generally opposed to the application. I don't, you know, if I can paraphrase something, they're opposed to housing, but they really don't want it there north of the industrial park. We had a letter from another resident on Second Line, just to the south of the site, but on the east side, and she's opposed to it as well. We got late-breaking comments from the Minister of Transportation, Ontario, and they were rather sparse. They say at this point they have no concerns, no comments, no objections. I've reached out. I have not yet heard back. You know, is that their position. I was expecting some more material comments from them. So we'll see what happens between, well, tomorrow, certainly not tonight, and March 26th. So I've asked them to get back to me on that. And the lead consultant, Maurizio, is aware of that as well. We'll see if they do. There's a little bit of a runaround on which office it was, so we have to catch out and find out which branch it was. So bit of a changing dynamic situation with MTO there. But anyway, I think at this point, I've pretty much said what I need to say. I'm just going to reiterate just briefly the overall land theme here in terms of designation zoning. So it's community settlement under the Dufferin County official plan. That's the upper tier municipality. It's Greenbelt Hamlet designated in the town's official plan. So as a primary land use going forward, that's the vision for this as a settlement. And of course, but it's zoned rural with the northerly portion predominantly below top of bank being environmental protection. So circling back to the implementing zoning bylaw, to put the plan of subdivision on there, the zoning has to align with it. Can't be rural. That's why there's an implementing zoning bylaw that would identify and support permissible uses for those range of housing frontage types that they've proposed in their plan of subdivision. I think at this point, I'm just going to turn it over to Nick McDonald. He's going to summarize his report. Again, it's also online. And over to you, Nick.
Okay, thank you. Nick, sorry, just one quick thing. To anybody who speaks, I will ask you to introduce yourself, who you are, and you know, in the case of Mono residents, your name and where you live. So,
sorry, just have one more thing to say. I almost forgot.
okay.
The house on the property, which was owned by the Hand family, Beatrice and Gerald. Now, I was going to say Gregory, it's Gerald Hand. That has been identified, the house and the barn, by Mono Heritage as two structures of interest. I don't have many details. I've reached out to Mono Heritage. They're going to get back to me with some more material comments before, hopefully, March 26th. I suspect it is of a historical nature rather than an architectural nature. But that being said, I will look forward to those comments as well. And of course, we'll inform council when we get them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee and members of the public. My name is Nick McDonald. I'm a registered professional planner. I'm also the president of a firm called Meridian Planning Consultants. We're based in Vaughan, Ontario. I personally have just under 35 years of experience providing advice to many municipalities, and I'm currently retained by many to provide my advice and thoughts on a number of applications across Southern Ontario. In this particular case, the town of Mono decided to reach out and retain an external planning consultant, such as myself, to provide advice, ultimately to council on this application. So what I've done is I've prepared a report. It was provided to you prior to this meeting, and it's also on the town's website. It's a fairly comprehensive report. The purpose of that report is only to review the application. It is not to make a recommendation. A recommendation report comes later, typically after the public meeting has been held, and all comments from the agencies and members of the public have been fully considered. While David indicates that a decision might be made at the public meeting, that's not customary. Decisions usually happen after the public meeting to allow for, yes, you did, to allow for the comments to percolate, so to speak, for a little while so people can understand what's going on and ask additional questions before a decision is made by council. And certainly any decision made by council is an important decision and should be made based on informed information and so on, and that's what my role is. There are a number of comments made in my report and in the reports made by R.J. Burnside, in addition to comments made by the agencies that I expect the applicant will review and provide another submission to the town. That second submission may involve the rejigging of reports, the preparation of new reports, or the preparation of addendums that address specifically the information that has been provided required, and that is very typical and customary in cases like these. And I've been involved in some circumstances where up to 6 submissions were received before council felt comfortable making a decision. And sometimes applications get very complex, and sometimes there's a need to go back and forth with the applicant to make sure there's a complete understanding of what is proposed before a decision gets made. So we're only dealing with the first submission, and it is very typical to see at least a second submission addressing the comments made in my report and the report of R.J. Burnside. So following the receipt of the second submission, whenever that may be, I will then be asked again to provide a report to council with my thoughts and comments on that second submission along the lines of, well, have all the issues been addressed to my satisfaction or the engineer's satisfaction or not? Is there a need for more information, and so on and so on? So that happens in the next report. As you've already indicated, and as Mr. Trotman indicated, the application involves the development of 349 dwelling units on a 41-hectare parcel of land on Line 2. The proposal involves the development of municipal services, which is a significant consideration here in the town. And when I say municipal services, that means municipal sewer and water services that would be ultimately assumed by the municipality and operated by the municipality in perpetuity. So that is what is being proposed by the applicant. As Mr. Trotman indicated, the lands are considered to be within a settlement area by the county official plan. And within settlement areas is where most of the growth and development in this province is intended to be directed. So to some extent, it's in the right place in the town if you're going to consider this kind of development. Within the town's official plan, it is also identified as a settlement area, and it's specifically identified as a green belt hamlet. And a broad range of uses are permitted in this land use designation. The subject lands are also the subject of a special provision in the Town of Modo official plan, which indicates that the lands may also be developed for light commercial industrial uses, subject to meeting a number of criteria. As full municipal services are proposed, the Mono official plan requires that the town may only accept such systems if the operating and maintenance costs would not, in the opinion of town council, which is very important, place any additional financial burden on existing ratepayers. So that's a significant test in the town's official plan that needs to be met to the satisfaction of council, I may add, because that's the wording included within the official plan itself. The Planning Act, it sets out a number of subdivision review considerations as set out on page 7 of my report. I'm not going to go through those today, but there is a fairly long list of items in the Planning Act that we need to check off and be satisfied with before a final decision gets made on the application. A number of agency comments have been received, and David has gone through some of them, and they are summarized beginning on page 9 of my report. These will also be assessed when preparing the final recommendation report. One comment of note that I would mention is from Dufferin County Planning. They were obviously circulated with the applications as well, and it has to do with preserving employment lands as per Official Plan Amendment number 3 to the County of Dufferin Official Plan. And as this committee, I'm sure, is aware, there was a request made for these lands to be designated employment in the county official plan. That decision was made by county council, and that decision has been forwarded off to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for a final decision. We don't know when that decision will be made, and quite frankly, we're not sure if a decision will get made because of changes that are happening at the provincial level with respect to provincial policy. R.J. Burnside, Gord Feniak in particular, leading the charge, has also reviewed the applications, and extensive comments have been made by R.J. Burnside on the applications. They're all attached to my report, and I'm going to ask Gord to make some summary comments following my comments. Detailed comments have also been provided by the Town Recreation Department as set out on page 11 of my report. I will not go through those as well. And as Mr. Trotman indicated, we've received 2 public comments as well, and they will also be considered going forward. I suppose the most important component of my report is the section dealing with land use planning considerations. And these are the initial thoughts that I have respecting the application that will need to be addressed in some way, primarily by the applicant first, and then secondly by council when they make a final decision on the application. So there are a few of them, and the first is the form of servicing. As I mentioned, full municipal services are proposed, and as you will hear from R.J. Burnside, it is recommended that an environmental assessment be prepared to deal with the water supply aspect of the application before we go too far into the application review process. And the purpose of an environmental assessment would be to assess the options that may be available for the provision of water supply services on the lands. And that includes connecting to existing systems, developing a new system, or doing something entirely different. And this is a requirement of the Environmental Assessment Act, and it is something that needs to be completed. In addition, you will also hear that a risk management assessment is also required, and such an assessment would consider the implications of assuming an additional wastewater treatment plant in the town of Mono. And I'm sure committee is aware there have been some issues with respect to existing systems, and certainly it would be my recommendation that eyes have to be way open before any decision is made to assume a third system within the community. Servicing is a threshold issue. It is acknowledged that the lands are within the settlement area, and this form of servicing can be considered by the town. That does not mean that the form of servicing has to be accepted. So that's something to consider moving forward. This means, of course, that determining the suitability of the full services is required before a decision can be made on the planning merits of the application. That is not customary in an urban area where services are provided. You just assume the services are going to be there at the front of the property line, and development is then considered on that basis. In this case, there are no services. It's a significant undertaking to install them, and a significant undertaking and a job for the town to maintain them over time. So it's a decision that needs to be made up front. The County of Dufferin, as I mentioned, has also identified these lands as employment lands. Now, the decision on that has not been made. That decision would come after the application. So that is something to consider from a timing perspective. But the County of Dufferin official plan also anticipates a population decline in the community to 2051 as well. That might sound kind of odd because folks are always building houses and new people are always moving in. But the key thing to keep in mind is that the household sizes are decreasing significantly over time. So even though you see construction happening, the population will decline because less people are living in households in the future, or projected to live in households in the future than today. However, there is an expectation that there would be a need for an additional 500 jobs in the town, which is significant for a town of this size, but it's something to consider. Two more comments. One has to do with land use compatibility. As we know, there are industrial/commercial uses to the south of this property. The applicant has prepared reports that review the existing uses within the Coles Crescent subdivision and the implication of developing residential uses nearby. We reviewed that work, and Gord Finiak will have some comments on that. But as a planner, it would also be requested from me that the worst case scenario in terms of land uses that could occur within the subdivision also be considered in these assessments before a final decision is made. My last comment, and this is preliminary as well, as mentioned, there is one proposed access from line 2 and one proposed access from the Coles Crescent subdivision. I'm not a big fan of mixing trucks and cars, so if this development does proceed, I would suggest that both accesses be from line 2 and there be at least 2 accesses onto the property. That's all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Mr. Finiak to perhaps summarize his thoughts at this point, and then we can both take questions at the appropriate time.
Very good. Thank you, Nick. Gord, welcome.
Thank you very much. Did I do that right, Fred? You're on. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. We don't have one Burnside letter. We have.
Gord, sorry, introduce
I'm
yourself.
sorry, I'm Gord Feniak from R.J. Burnside and Associates.
Yep.
So we're town engineers. Nick says he's been doing this 35 years. I'm coming up to 40, and of that, I think 37 have been in Mono. So I predate the chair. And I've been involved, I guess, in the previous developments that that surround the subject application as well. And we have in the package, in Nick's package, actually 6 letters from Burnside. There's a reason for that. It's because there's 6 different areas of expertise that have been involved in reviewing different reports. We've reviewed water supply, wastewater treatment, transportation, hydrogeology, air and noise, which kind of go into one emissions review, and ecological. So obviously I didn't write all 6. I'm here representing the 6 different areas, more or less to answer questions, but not to make detailed presentations, which I think will be made by the applicant. And I think Nick has picked up some of the key points that come out. I think if I were to describe all 6 reports in general terms, what we have is normally what we would see as a preliminary submission. It's not necessarily a perfected submission that has gone through a back and forth process, as has been mentioned, multiple resubmissions and comments and collaboration. What we have in this application is something that was presented to us without input from the municipality. And we've responded as best we can, and we would anticipate ongoing dialogue on that as well. I think the critical one that Nick has touched on is the EA required for a new water system. What's presented to us is a brand new water system that happens to more or less touch the existing water system, but it would be presented to the town as 2 separate but independent town of Mono water systems. And to create a new water system, a class environmental assessment is needed. And one of the foundations of the environmental assessment process is that you go into the process with nothing more than a problem, and you look at an entire range of solutions. You're required to be very open-minded as to what different alternatives may be, and you're to be open-minded. You don't go in with your mind made up on any one of them. So it's a very transparent process. It involves the public. It involves review agencies. It's a scrutiny of the economic environment, the natural environment, and the social environment, and how each of the alternatives fits in. And so, as has been noted, given that process is in front of us with this application, it's premature to draw any conclusions at all until such a process is undertaken. But I think beyond that, that would be the key one. And I think I'm probably best at this point just to leave it that if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Gord. At this point in time, I invite the applicant and their representatives to come forward, please, and make your presentations. And so introduce yourself. Please sit down and turn on the mic. And that, just for the sake of decorum, we don't, as a chair of this committee, I don't like this through you, Mr. Chair, stuff. Yeah. Colonel Roberts was probably a really good guy hundreds of years ago. But anyhow, I don't do that. We're a little more flexible or whatever. So we don't need to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Maurizio Rogato.
Maurizio, yes, thank you.
Can you hear me okay?
I can now, yes.
Excellent.
Thanks, Maurizio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening to members of committee, town personnel, and external consultants. Ladies and gentlemen who've decided to come this evening, and obviously everyone who's virtually observing us online. My name is Maurizio Rogato. I am the principal planner, registered professional planner with Blackthorn Development Corporation. I only have about 23 years experience, so not quite 40. And I've done several work throughout the province, including land use planning, development planning. My role on this file is as project manager. The appointed planner is Mr. Paul Lowe's of SGL Planning and Design, Inc. He was unable to be here this evening, but will be at the statutory public meeting. This evening, I am joined by our traffic engineer, Miss Casey G. Casey, say hello. And I believe observing us virtually is our civil engineer, John Priamo and Paige. I do not have a formal presentation this evening. I believe it's the role of the applicant to listen. We've received, as mentioned by Mr. Trotman and Mr. McDonald, some comments, not all comments. And as outlined earlier in the presentations, which I believe they've canvassed all the details of the proposed development, but of course I'm available to answer any questions. The process would have us receive the comments, review the comments, sincerely consider those comments, and the hope would be that we'd be able to file a second submission. And that second submission would attempt to address all the comments satisfactorily. So I believe we're early on in the process of this significant proposed development for the town of Mono, and I believe it's contingent upon at least myself this evening to listen, try to answer whatever questions I may be able to answer this evening, and of course, I would say the same would be true for the upcoming public statutory meeting, because I truly believe that public meetings are exactly for that, to receive input from the public, from the various commenting agencies. We've only received some of the later R.J. Burnside letters, for example, through this report. The previous comments received prior to the report did not include some of the letters, so we've got a lot to consider, a lot to look at regarding the proposed development. And again, I believe that Mr. Trotman and Mr. McDonald did a fine job of explaining what the proposal before committee is this evening, which in essence is a plan of subdivision for residential dwellings together with servicing blocks, open space blocks, buffer blocks, and what have you. And as noted, servicing is a topic of discussion. Some may have it to be a threshold issue. That's fine. I believe all the issues matter equally, because the output of that is to see if we can get to a proposed development which can be accepted by the municipality, of course. So with that said, I think I would be available for any questions, of course. Happy to discuss the proposal if there are any questions in terms of the description of the development. But again, I believe the applications were properly described by your personnel before you, including the process and the proposal itself. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Maurizio. So moving through our meeting order, with this, this is the point in time when committee members can ask questions and make comments. Elaine Capes, you were here first. Okay, well, you were here first. So I'm gonna move on to Barbara. You were here second, so I'm gonna ask you, please.
Thank you, Bob.
No problem.
Hi, I'm Barbara Jafflis. My major concerns, I've read all of the reports with question. The environmental assessment is necessary. One of my main concerns were water infrastructure and servicing. And I think environmental protection in the large area of the green belt, green space. A little bit about traffic safety. I was wondering, you said that the Ministry of Transportation is going to get back to at a later date, or?
First names here, Barbara. Okay, to answer your question, that's what I hope. We got back, as I said, sparse comments, really no comment at all, which I thought was a bit surprising from MTO. And I've asked the corridor management planner to, please confirm that if that's the case, and if not, please review back to me your material comments if that's what you're still working on. So I don't know if there was a misstep there on their part. It would appear to be that way for a project of this
It appears
nature.
to be deficient in their response.
It's not what I've seen in the past, so that's why I circled back to him and said, are
Yep.
these your comments? And
I was
please confirm.
delighted to see that it was circulated and there was response from both school boards too, because there is that overcapacity in both the Catholic school and the Upper Grand Public School.
Barbara, sorry, please talk in.
All right, I'm
into
sorry, can
your
you hear
mic.
me?
Yeah, thank you. It's also for the purposes of the YouTube online.
Okay.
If we don't talk into our mics, people
So-
can't hear. Thank you, Barbara.
The other question I have, I think the water is probably front and foremost. There is a golf course across the street. I'm questioning, is there any resident here or any representation from the golf course? Did they respond?
To answer your question, they were circulated by mail out. They were within the capture zone of
Okay.
under the Plan Act. But no, I did not hear from
And the
Mr.
only other,
Jagashar at all, nor did I get an email.
the only other thing that I think, dealing with provincial policy statement, includes that development should ensure a necessary infrastructure and public service facilities are or will be available to meet current and projected needs. And I suspect, since this is primarily a preliminary hearing, that most of these comments will be addressed at a later date.
Oh, Maurizio, sorry, your mic, please. Yeah. And Maurizio, this is, we're not counselors here, we're committee members.
My apologies.
No, don't apologize, it's okay.
Madam Committee Member, that's my expectation. As noted, we expect to review the comments and provide a response to the comments. So that would be our attempt to try to address the comments.
There are things such as the ability of fire trucks to turn around. I'm looking at the landscape in this. The density seems large to me in certain areas. Also, Mono is deficient of light commercial development, and I think we also need to protect that. Having said that, I will pass this on to another member to continue.
Okay, Barbara, thank you. I'm going to move on in the order that people came in. So, Jerry, it's your turn. Please turn your mic on, and thank you.
Okay, I've got, some of it may be overlapped what Barbara has said. However, I would say to the Heritage Committee, that barn was destroyed in 1960, so it's not a real old barn. I say that to Barbara only because I think she's on the Heritage Committee, maybe. So, anyway, that's something come up tonight. I certainly acknowledge what the commercial property people have said to the south. However, I think we have other commercial sites around that would, for employment and one thing and another, so I'm not sure that that's a real big problem at this point in time, but it's something that we should be aware of. And their concerns are certainly viable. I guess if I go further down my list, I'm concerned about access to Highway 9 and access to the second line. And it was noted that there should be two accesses out onto the second line, and I think that's very true. But if anyone's got onto Highway 9 in that location or all the way to Mona Mills, I'm surprised that the MTO haven't made a bigger point of it. So I'm sure that David is working on that. Schools, yes, I'm glad they commented on it. I guess I can't say any more about that. With population's going down, I mean, it isn't that long ago, and I'm an old guy, I guess, but we ran out of schools, and then we had too many schools, and then we were back to portables and one thing and another. So it's certainly something that the experts have to look at and go from there. Water and sewage. wastewater. Again, I'm not an expert on that. However, I would say that the East Credit River rises on my lower 50, and the Humber rises on my back 50, just north of there. So we're sitting right on the water table, and that's only 1.5 miles away from my property. I don't know, I'm not a hydrologist, but I certainly am concerned about water for all of these projects, whether that be agriculture or whether it be subdivisions or no matter what it might be. The water table is going down, and I noted on, I'll note on highway, or on 5 Side Road at the third line, there's ponds there that I've never seen dry, and they've certainly been dry the last 3 or 4 years. My uncle and my dad talked about them running over 5 Side Road and over the third line, and they're just a dribble now. So that's certainly a concern that we've got with water. I've got my own little idea on that, and one of them is that the one on the north side of 5 Side Road, whenever they drilled the 3 wells that used to be the hydro center, that pond has just gone down steadily ever since that. And I know that because I've been renting that property. So it's a concern, and I think we should be very aware of it. I think the other thing that I'm concerned about as an agriculturalist is, and it's maybe opposite to what Barbara has said, but I'd sooner see this kind of a subdivision than I would see houses up and down the roads. Let's put it in one spot, do it right, and protect some of the farmland. And that particular farm and the farms behind it that the houses are on the first line and stuff, some of the best land in Mona Township. So let's do it right if we're going to use it up. I think that's all I have right at this point in time.
Very good. Thank you, Jerry. Elaine Kehoe?
I'm sorry, I came in last.
No, I'm the chair, and Elaine Capes won't speak, so you're up. Please turn your mic on and speak into it. I know you were.
Elaine Kehoe, hi. One of the things I think that-
Elaine, move your mic closer, please. Sorry, it has been emphasized to me that we must speak into these mics so that it gets on YouTube. Thank you.
we've all looked at the various considerations, the schools, the water, the environment, the impact on taxpayers, which I feel is very important because taxes keep going up. I think one of the things that ought to be considered is maybe reducing the size of the project in order to accommodate the two access that would be necessary. I did spend considerable time both on a business day, an evening, and on a Saturday on Cole Avenue as well as on the second line. And the amount of traffic having to funnel out onto Highway 9 is fine if you're going west, but if you're trying to turn east, it's a nightmare. So that has to be taken into consideration, and perhaps even the request of a light, which nobody's going to want because of the just the flow of traffic, keeping up the flow of traffic. The consideration, if we reduce the number of homes, then we would reduce the number of students and therefore taking away the burden of the schools in the area, which are already, they've all said they're beyond or at capacity. The water, of course, has always been a top priority. That's going to be a matter that has to be addressed because based on what has been projected and the number of people going in there and the issues that we've had here in the town with water problems, arsenic in the water, etc., I don't think that the town, that we can afford, the taxpayers, to have anything else having to take over a third water system that may have these issues. Those were my comments.
Okay, thank you, Elaine. Elaine, I'm the chair. I have to go last, so you don't have a choice now. You're up.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anyway, so I'm going to speak in very general terms. I find the process for the applications that come forward to be disappointing in the way that they set up for debate, which means there's the developer and everybody else. And so that causes conflict, that causes anxiety, it causes a whole bunch of things that are probably unnecessary, because everybody's trying to prove their own point, that this is what's right, and, so I would much prefer that we had a process of dialogue, engaging people who would be impacted so everybody can collaborate, but such is not the planning system. Having said that, I was encouraged by your opening remarks to say that you are here to listen, to receive all of the comments, to review all of the comments, and to respond to those comments in a sincere and responsible way. So thank you for that. I find that this proposal, and I don't mean any malice when I say this, is for the benefit of the developer and not for the benefit of the town and the well-being of the residents, those who currently live here and those who could move here in the future. I find it an uncreative design with no consideration of creating a neighborhood with amenities to support their daily living and enjoyment of place. I see no consideration for creating community housing to allow all people to have a home. I see no consideration for the incompatible land use and the impact on our current commercial operators and the potential home buyers, especially regarding noise and traffic and potential harm. As it stands, the present proposal presents substantial risk, in my opinion, for the town and a potential burden to both the town and all the taxpayers, as per we have some experience with those types of systems for water and wastewater. And I don't believe that it's considerate of what we actually need in the town of Mono. We meet all of the targets for growth and don't need to build a subdivision such as this. And so I submit that to you, and I look forward to the second submission and to hearing from the public. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Elaine. My turn. Some of what I will say has already been said, but I want to emphasize some of these points. In no particular order, first concern, and this was a concern in a previous submission for a subdivision for lands that were slated for employment opportunities. The town of Mono desperately needs land that can be used for employment opportunities. And during that previous submission, I got staff to do an analysis. So I'm reluctant to give up any land that could be used for employment and commercial. And here's a startling number, quite frankly. Percentage of vacant land that is zoned for commercial in the town of Mono is 0.12% of the total land area of Mono, 0.12%. That's all that we've got that could potentially be used for employment. I said this before, I'll say it again. I would encourage council to not give up 1 square meter of that 0.12%. So there's that to me is a very fundamental thing. This land is located in an area that could be used for light industrial, and the fact that there is a right-of-way from the Coles Industrial Subdivision into this property, that right-of-way is there, and I don't know when that was done. Doesn't matter. It's been there a long time. It's still there. The whole reason for that right-of-way was to connect the Coles Industrial Subdivision to light industrial. which would be on the subject property here. So that to me is extremely fundamental. Employment opportunities in Mono are very, very limited, which is why you see people heading south on Highway 10, east on number 9, morning and night. I should have started by saying I live in the Island Lake subdivision. So of all of our members here, I live closest to this, and that not that they don't know what goes on there, but I live in the Island Lake subdivision off of the first line. Was very instrumental. I was the chair of the planning committee when the Brookfield subdivision on the east side of the first line was put in. And one of the, and it's been mentioned here by some of our members, one of the most fundamental things, by the way, I supported the Brookfield subdivision because I thought it was the right place for 350 homes. I don't support this, but one of the most fundamental things of the Brookfield proposal was that no existing resident of Mono should ever in their lifetime be at risk of having to contribute to costs in the Brookfield subdivision. So they have their communal septic system, which has been an absolute disaster. But our friends at Burnside can we won't get into the details of that, but has been an absolute disaster. With that, I would say to council, don't even consider approving anything that could potentially be a risk to residents of Mono. Like all the rest of my committee members here, I'm on a septic system. So if I mess that up, there's only one person that pays for that, and that's Bob McRae. Again, I remember saying exactly the same things when Brookfield was put in, and that. So that has to be absolutely fundamental for town of Mono to assume another communal septic system. To me, that's an absolute non-starter. Traffic. I've already alluded to the right-of-way into the Coles subdivision here. In my wildest dreams, I never would have thought that anybody would consider, and I'm sorry if I'm being blunt here, but I have to be blunt, anybody would consider running residential traffic through the Coles subdivision. In fact, on my way to this meeting tonight, I purposely went along French Drive, Coles subdivision, and then up the second line past the subject property here. And that I do that often because I golf at the Dufferin Glen golf course across the road from that. So any suggestion that residential roads, in the event that residential might be approved here, any suggestion that residential roads should feed into the right-of-way and into through the Coles subdivision, that is absolutely a non-starter. And I would suggest to council that through whatever process they can do to close that right-of-way. So it has already been mentioned that there should be 2 accesses. In the event that this gets approved, 2 accesses to the second line. Having said that, and I believe it was Jerry that talked about the traffic headings, and it will, given that there are not the employment opportunities in the town of Mono. Everybody that lives here, or almost everybody that lives here, will be working somewhere else. So they will be heading out of their homes in the morning to the second line, heading south on the second line, and a lot of them turning east then on Highway 9. That will be an absolute disaster. And one of the things when the Brookfield subdivision was put in, and again, I was the chair of that and I insisted on that, and it was a condition of that subdivision, and I believe, and I could be corrected on that, that Brookfield was required to pay for that light at the first line. If there is no light at the second line, if this subdivision is there, this will be an absolute traffic disaster. And I'm not one for hyperbole or conspiracy theories. It's just a fact. And people will quickly learn that when they come out onto the second line, instead of lining up, and there will be a long line up heading south on the second line to try to turn onto 9, they will quickly learn that they can go west along French Drive over to the first line of Mono, which is my access to get home, and then take a left-hand turn onto the first line of Mono and line up at the traffic light there. So people have mentioned about the MTO. I don't know how I can say something and not sound unkind towards the MTO, except to say whoever from the MTO wrote that report has never, ever been in the town of Mono and tried to take a left-hand turn from the second line of Mono onto Highway 9. It's difficult enough taking a right-hand turn to head west along Highway 9. And again, I thank God that it was a condition of the Brookfield subdivision to put that light in. I've lived in the Island Lake subdivision for 18 or 19 years. That light was not there when I moved in there, and it was a nightmare turning onto that. So without a light there, but then we're going to have a light at the second and the first and the hospital and the like. But without that there, this project is a non-starter. It really is. I don't see any effort, and if you're going to make a second try at this, why you wouldn't have considered, given that this, some of this should be employment lands, and we said this about a previous application, that why there wouldn't have been a consideration to have mixed use here, with some of this land being available for light industrial, and there is a demand for it, and it could be accommodated here. Well, I guess I know why, is you paid a lot of money for this property, and the way to make that money back is houses. And so we can be blunt about that. You're businessmen. You want to make money. I don't discourage you from doing that. I just discourage you from doing that on this property in Mono. That's I guess about as blunt and as polite as I can be. As I say, I supported the Brookfield application. At the time, 350 homes, it was the right place to do that. We don't need another 349 homes at the south end of Mono. Elaine referred to, I think it was Elaine, referred to the fact that we've met all of our targets on that. So I think I'm done. And if I've been blunt, I won't apologize for that, but I will recognize that. I do actually have a degree in urban planning. I graduated from Waterloo in 1976. That was a long time ago. For my way of thinking, I will conclude with this. For my way of thinking, what I learned getting my degree in urban and regional planning from Waterloo is that this does not follow sound planning principles. And I guess that sums up my feelings on that. So with that, you're done with me now. So, well, I don't take these things lightly, and I'm in an estate subdivision. There are 150 homes, 350 homes in Brookfield, Purple Hill on the other side. The south end of Mono is an appropriate place for these homes, but we've got enough. It's also an appropriate place for employment, as anybody that has driven along Highway 9 can see. Highway 9 up Highway 10, perfect for those things, and that. So that's with that. Questions from members. And with that, now I do open it up to the public, to people I will start with those of you who are personally in attendance here. So if anybody has a question or comment, Fred, we can use this other mic. So Maurizio, you stay there. You're okay. So if anybody has a question or a comment, I encourage you to, yes, please come forward, sit down here, turn on the mic. If you could please give us your name and address in Mono. Please, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Doug Thompson. I live at 486-077 30th Side Road in the town of Mono. I am here this evening on behalf of the Mono-Mulmer Citizens Coalition. Just want to say up front, the coalition is in strong opposition to this application, and we believe the development should be rejected. Some of the primary reasons for our stance include the following. The official plan for the county and the town favored the development of this land as employment zoning. Why is a residential development even being considered? Putting some 350 houses on land that is adjacent to an industrial neighborhood strikes us as a poor location and bad planning. Water and sewage services, as described in the application, are wholly inadequate for the area. The land is located within the significant groundwater recharge area and highly vulnerable aquifer. Groundwater supply is not inexhaustible. Additionally, Mono has considerable experience with the challenge of elevated arsenic levels in the natural water supply. The developer has not demonstrated any understanding of how to minimize arsenic levels and seem happy to, over the long term, leave the potentially astronomical costs of treating the water up to Mono taxpayers. To quote from the town's consultant, the issue of arsenic in the test wells presents a significant and potentially insurmountable hurdle for the proposed water supply. The proposal also plans to service wastewater by way of a new municipal wastewater treatment facility. Once again, Mono has considerable negative and costly experiences, which has already been mentioned, with similar wastewater treatment facilities associated with two existing, denser residential developments. In the case of the Watermark treatment plant, the plant has recently been completely rebuilt by the Condo Corporation following only 13 years of service. And the Fieldstone treatment plant has experienced major breakdowns. As recently as February of '22, there was raw sewage overflowing down the driveway from the plant, and the plant has never met its environmental compliance approval effluent standards. The developer, once again, does not address the future long-term servicing costs that Mono taxpayers would be forced to shoulder. The town of Mono should reject this development proposal just on this point. The town's official plan clearly states that the maintenance costs of such piped service system must not place any additional financial burden on existing ratepayers. There is no conceivable way that this development will do anything but add to the ratepayers' burden in Mono. There is no need in the first place for this development. According to the County of Dufferin's official plan, no increase in Mono's population need be planned for. Indeed, between 2021 and 2051, Mono's population is forecasted to decline by 100 people, while there will be a modest increase in employment projections of 500 people. Dufferin's population growth is instead focused in the three areas that have municipal water and sewer services: Orangeville, Shelburne, and Grand Valley. It has been Mono's long-standing and consistent vision that the subject lands be used for an extension of the Coles Crescent Industrial Park and reserved for employment uses. I'll end my presentation here in the interest of time, but there are many other very important and valid reasons to reject this proposal, not the least of which include a lack of infrastructure to support it, such as roads, which are beyond congested now, schools already past max capacity, chronic shortages of health and social services, etc. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Doug. Anybody else in the gallery? Questions, comments? Yes, sir. Yes, please. Come forward, turn on the mic, give us your name and address in Mono, please.
My name is Brad Davidson, and I own a company at 23 Coles Crescent. And just general comments from me is, has there been any discussion about development fees are going to be waived, or normal development fees are going to be presented to the builder?
Doug, that will be part of the process moving forward. There is development fee bylaw, Elaine, do you want to? Sorry? Brad, sorry. Brad, I apologize. No, that will, if this advances, then that is part of the normal process. So if you have are you concerned that development fees?
Well, I've seen development fees waived before in Mono Township, to myself included, 22 years ago. I didn't
Okay.
have to pay development fees on Coles Crescent because they were encouraging development.
Okay, well,
And
it-
I'm just asking if that
Yeah.
is going to go forward to somebody that's building 349 houses.
that will be something that council will consider. Sorry.
I bet if I
Yeah,
can.
thanks, Dave.
So we do have a development charges bylaw in effect. It gets updated yearly. And industrial, commercial has a rated provision in that bylaw for new commercial employment development as well as residential.
Yes.
And we just actually commenced undertaking a review of that bylaw, the DCA bylaw, Development Charges Act bylaw, this month. And that will be this year's update to it as well. So we have a consultant involved, Watson Consultants, who are foremost in that area of expertise, are undertaking that review of our development charges bylaw. So we do apply development charges to primary residential, residential development as much as we do commercial, industrial.
I'm just wondering who's building the school, you know? With 49 more houses, I can see a need for a school. And my other question is, are these being built to sell? Or are these being built to retain and rent out? Or for sale?
Yeah, Maurizio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Brad.
Hi.
So, a couple things. So far, we've paid the application fees, and we expect to pay the full gambit of fees through the process, so we don't expect any fee waivers of any kind. Secondly, we haven't yet developed a marketing strategy. Chances are there'll be market houses for sale. People who buy the homes may opt to rent the homes, but we haven't yet finalized our marketing on this because we're really early in the process.
Are they built for single-family dwellings other than
Yep, there's-
built
there's
for
a-
two different levels?
There's a range of dwelling types that are proposed. Forgive me, I'm trying to speak into the microphone. We've got 50-foot single-family detached dwellings, 42-foot single-family detached dwellings, 36-foot single-family detached
But are they
dwellings.
going to be built as,
Townhouses.
you know, top and bottom, so that maybe, 349 houses now becomes 700 living units?
There could be secondary suites within the dwellings per provincial regulation in the future.
So that
But again, we have,
349 might jump to 700 individual families if they were both built top and bottom for that purpose.
again, the single-family homes will be built, not one home on top of the other, as is, but people within the home may have a unit within the home. And as everyone knows, provincial legislation does permit secondary suites now.
No, I understand that.
Yep.
I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around the traffic, because I go out there every day. And you're right, I've seen accidents at the second line trying to turn east, and it's a nightmare. And there will have to be something done, there have to be a light there, and some traffic slowed down, because it's 80 till you get there, and it slows down to 70 or 60 just beyond that. It's got to slow down on the hill. The third line, it's got to start slowing down. They come down there, there's more accidents on that hill than anywhere, coming off down by PV Mart there, that's where the wrecks
Yeah.
happen. Yeah, that's about all I wanted to know. I just try to wrap my head around what they're trying to build here, whether building rental units, whether you're keeping them all, or whether you're selling them.
Okay, very good. Brad, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Nobody can know. You know, right now, the application is for 349 homes. Well, but the application is for 349 homes. So I appreciate your concern. It's, look,
349 rental units?
we don't know. We don't know, but it's a concern, and it's, no, I'm sorry, your concern, it's noted. And I live in an estate subdivision in that, and are there secondary units in some of those houses? Probably, but I don't know. No, you're welcome. Anyone else in the audience here? Questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone online who has a question or a comment, please? And seeing none, with that, Maurizio, do you, with that, we would close the public meeting. I think it's Maurizio, I want to give you an opportunity if you want to respond to any of what you've just heard, or do you want to hold that and, you know, come back later or whatever, but I want to give you that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity. In terms of a response, you know, as I said at the onset, we're here to listen. We've received, you might have noticed, I've been busy typing, so I've been noting the comments. Once we receive the full gambit of application comments, our process would be to review those comments sincerely, as I've mentioned, and resubmit. That would be what we're looking to do. Obviously, the process in itself is what governs the review of the applications, and will abide by the Planning Act process and all the rights inherent within. But I think it would be premature of me to provide any direct responses. But I have heard very clearly what the concerns are surrounding land use. I'm generalizing, Mr. Chairman, compatibility of land use, assertion of what the lands were intended for, traffic, housing tenure, I believe now has been brought up as well. So I hope I've captured sort of the themes, and I've tried to document all the comments that we've heard. And our hope is we hear more on March 26th at the statutory public meeting. And lastly, our hope is that we're able to meet with town personnel and their external experts to try to discuss the applications and the comments. Member Gapes, I really hold true what you've said at the onset of your remarks, which is the planning process, and I'm a planner. I'm not the one who bought the land. So I'm a registered professional planner like you, who you were educated at the University of Waterloo, and a degree in planning. I also have an urban and regional planning degree, and I believe profoundly in the planning process, notwithstanding that as of late, everyone seems to blame the process or find it inadequate, slow, you know, the housing crisis, all these comments. I don't like the process to be confrontational. I don't think the residents of Mono deserve that. But I also think that the process needs to be fair, accurate, and open and transparent, and needs to take full measures of what's afforded to us in that process, whether it's application reviews and whatnot. So I just simply thank everyone for their remarks this evening. I tried to listen again and document those comments, and we look forward to the statutory public meeting March 26th. And then going from there, we hope to find some common ground if we could.
Very good. Thank you, Maurizio. You bring up something that is very dear to my heart, and that is an open and fair public process, and that's what we're doing here tonight. And that's why I always give everybody in attendance the opportunity to speak, and which we have done tonight, and also you deserved the opportunity to respond in that. So I think what we've done here tonight is fair and open. With that, I will close the public meeting part of this. Now, it's a don't go away, don't go away, don't go away. Now it's up to the committee, because we do have an obligation to give a recommendation to council as the planning committee commenting agency. So, committee members, council will be counting on us to give a recommendation. Does anybody have one? Elaine, by the way, Elaine is our resident council member on the planning committee, if people don't know, but they should. So, Elaine.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Maurizio. I appreciate, and I will hold you to your word of looking for common ground. I appreciate that. It's difficult at this point to make any recommendation. So my recommendation, I agree with you, and I thank you again for bringing up the zoning and the need for employment lands. So at face value, for the application that's been presented, I would not agree to rezoning. I would recommend we don't rezone, so that we keep those lands as employment lands and look for a different developer that wants to build employment opportunity for the 500 people who need to work somewhere. So also, at face value, I would not approve or recommend approving the plan of subdivision, because I don't think it's appropriate for a lot of reasons. And I thank our planning consultants who gave us a very fine report and outlined things very succinctly. And I thank the members of the public who have also voiced their objections. And I think at this stage, my recommendation would be to not move forward.
Okay, very good.
I mean, not move forward, not to approve it as is.
To deny
Thank
it
you.
as is.
Yeah.
I could ask you if you want to make that as a motion. Is there any discussion before I ask Elaine Capes to move that as a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, Elaine, would you like to move that as a motion?
Absolutely. I would
Please.
like to make that motion, but somebody's going to have to repeat it back. Hopefully, somebody was writing that down.
Well, Simi's upstairs.
Maybe not.
Your motion is a recommendation from the Planning, Environment, and Natural Heritage Committee, recommendation to council to...
Not grant the rezoning and not grant the plan of subdivision application
Okay.
as they stand.
Okay, there's the motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Barb Jafflace? Do I have any objections to that? Seeing none, that passes. So I think we all understand this. Could be accused of giving too much detail or repeating it. I did get a degree in urban planning, Maurizio, but I spent over 40 years of my life in commissioned sales. So I got used to saying things and then repeating them and repeating them and repeating them until my customers understood that, and then we could get to it. So it's an old habit. I'm retired now. But so with that, that is the decision of the Planning and Environmental Natural Heritage Committee. Okay, very good. With that, that's basically our meeting. I've got a couple of other things, other business and adjournment, but anybody that wants to leave now, by all means. Okay, I'm going to move right along. I don't have any other business. Does any other member have any other business? Sorry, Barbara?
I've got a comment, and I don't know how to extend this. I would like this committee to suggest to the planning staff that notification of all developments be extended beyond the current area. I feel that the boundaries that are incurred in an urban area like downtown Toronto certainly don't work up here. If you go within, I don't know what it is now, David?
Dave Trotman, question here.
David? 120 meters. Well, 120 meters wouldn't go from one driveway to another. So I would like to see in future, or put to council from this committee, that we extend the notification boundaries, because I think it's only fair.
Okay. Dave, before you speak, first off, I agree with you, and that I like to be flexible and pragmatic about things. And in the past, with certain applications, in fact, we have done that. Jerry, yeah. So we have done that. If we want to make that a matter of every time, I mean, that's the legal requirement, but I agree with you.
One thing that we have to keep in mind is now that we don't have any local newspapers to rely on, and the communication, I don't know, the signs go up, people don't know about the signs, they're driving 70 miles an hour and the sign's 2 feet by 4 feet. You cannot be aware of some of these planning applications, so I'd like to see the notification be extended, can I say for major rezoning applications?
I think it should,
Go ahead.
I think it should apply to all applications, because I'll give you a perfect example of when we had the landfill next to our property, and we did not receive notice. I found out from my neighbor that there was a proposed landfill going in. So I think we really ought to address the situation and make it not only just for heavy density, but all.
I agree.
Dave, your mic is on there. I think that we could put that in as a request from the Planning, Environment, and Natural Heritage Committee. I'm going against what I said, that I'm going to keep calling it the Planning Committee. We can put that in as a request to staff. I don't think that has to go to council.
It's a request of the planning department for planning committee matters. The Plan Act prescribes those boundaries, 120 meters. That said, if we have portions of properties captured by 120 meters, we go beyond to make sure we get those other properties. Recognize the staff we have of 2 in-house. Where now Mississauga has 3 teams of about 16 planners used to do that. But let me finish. So what we do, we post to the website. We go to the e-newspapers, the online papers, and we put the signboard on the property, and that's key. It's 4 by 4 feet, so that people beyond 120 meters, but in the area, when they go out, walk by, drive by, presumably not going 120 miles an hour, can see that, and if they have an interest, they can stop and read the sign. And that signboard really is to capture people beyond 120 meters.
Dave,
Those are the 4 methods we use. So I think on smaller applications, I think the 120 meter works fine. And we still use the signboards anyway, actually. So there's a limit to what we can do.
Dave, to put this in perspective, we don't get that many big applications. So when we get
we do it for all, actually. So if
but when we get these big ones, I think it's not unreasonable what Barbara has suggested here. So I think as a planning committee, we can make that request to you. And look, you and I, we work together on that, so we can discuss these things. And if committee members give me a concern about it, we'll deal with it.
Well, so I mean, we can extend the capture area for sure, but we can't be post-mailing half the town on one application.
We're not asking for that.
So 120 meters, we can maybe try to double it.
At the least, yes. Yeah.
But again, the other forms of notice are as important for those who want to stay and be informed. And I think the signboard is an excellent example. Well, other than for those people who don't get out, it's there. It's 4 by feet and it's at the front of the property. And it's the way we try to capture anyone else beyond 120 meters generally. That's what we do.
Good. Thank you. I don't want to spend any more time on this. I think the point is well made, and Elaine?
I think it is a good point. It's not the first time that this has come to, that had been coming to the council table. It is an issue, not just for the people who are immediately surrounding those properties, but other people who are in the area as well. I mean, when you talk about major impact to traffic, when you talk about major impact to water, when you talk about major impact to risk, major impact to the town liability and the expense to taxpayers, it's not just a matter of people who drive by, and it's not just a matter of people within 120 meters. So I think we need to look at that a little differently, and I think we need to have a conversation, application to application, to see what the potential impacts are on the decisions we are going to make and who might be impacted by them. So I agree.
Very good. Committee members, any other business? Seeing none, let's adjourn, call for adjourning the meeting. My the phone here says 8:36. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Elaine Cape, seconded by Elaine, the two Elaines, seconded by Elaine Kehoe. And thank you. And Fred, you do what you need to do to stop the recording. Maurizio, I was going to say to you, unless you're a much better typer than I am, getting all of those comments, this is posted on YouTube, so. Yeah. You're good. Yeah, my wife was in journalism. She could keep up with that. It amazes me, but I sure can't.